I think there is a big picture to understand conceptually here. And if you go back all the way back to colonial days, basically, or the early days of the United States, we really see in this history of psychiatry two sort of broad themes. One is where you conceive of psychiatric problems as a medical disorder, as a mental, as a physical illness, and you do try to do something to knock down the symptoms of, quote, that illness. And then the other alternative conception, an alternative way of thinking about things and what we need to do as a society is thinking of really around environmental responses, where we see that human beings respond to their environments. Sometimes they have environments that lead to great difficulties, but that being in a supportive environment can, in fact, be a path back to wellness or back to having a robust life in society, et cetera. So those are the two big themes. Now, sometimes we think of the disease model as so related to the arrival of antipsychotics, and in particular DSM-3 in 1980, when the American Psychiatric Association did in fact adopt a disease model for diagnosing and treating psychiatric disorders. But if you really go way back to the late 1700s and the early 1800s, the father of American psychiatry is often said to be Benjamin Rush, and he saw it as a illness. And so, for example, one of the first things he invented was something called the tranquilizer chair, where someone who was, quote, psychotic or agitated would be strapped down to a chair for a long period of time and bled. And the idea was somewhat similar to chemical imbalances. The idea was, psychosis is due, or madness as they called it at the time, is due to too much blood rushing to the head. And so if we bleed these people, that's an antidote to that physical problem. Okay, so there was still that antidote. You're treating the symptom, you're treating some pathology. Now, I just want to say one thing real quickly. I'm pretty sure if you did a randomized clinical trial where you put someone in a chair and bled them, their symptoms, in fact, bled them profusely, their symptoms on rating scales would, in fact, diminish because they'd become quieter, they'd become lacking of energy, that sort of thing. So we tend to make fun of these, old forms of, quote, care or treatments, but they really were similar in conception, that this is an illness, that the treatment was supposed to be an antidote to that illness. And if you had a treatment that quieted someone, made them less able to interact with the world, it was often seen as effective.